Beneath the glossy veneer of frantic rebrandings and celebrity endorsements, a perfect storm of financial abandonment and social exile has finally made landfall in Montecito, leaving the Duke and Duchess with debts they cannot pay, friends they have alienated, and bridges they have already burned to ash. Hello, and a very warm welcome to you all. Pull up a chair, pour yourself something steadying, and let us look behind the curtain of this week's rather desperate performance. We begin tonight with a story that has been whispered about in the hushed corners of Beverly Hills for months, but is only now breaking the surface with the force of a tidal wave. For years, we have watched the Sussexes navigate their American odyssey with the confidence of those who believe the safety net will always be there. We were told of their powerful friends, their billionaire benefactors, and the chosen family that would replace the one they left behind in Britain. Chief among these was Tyler Perry. You remember the narrative, don't you? The media mogul who descended like a deus ex machina in 2020, whisking them away on his private jet, housing them in his Beverly Hills mansion, and providing the security detail that the palace had so cruelly in their eyes withdrawn. He was not just a friend, he was the godfather to their daughter, the ultimate symbol of their acceptance into the Hollywood elite. But tonight that relationship appears to be in tatters, and the reason is as old as time: money. According to a well-placed source within the entertainment industry, the friendship has hit a catastrophic wall over a debt estimated to be in the region of $14 million. Now let's be clear about what this money represents. When the couple first arrived, breathless and claiming poverty, Perry reportedly extended more than just hospitality. Insiders suggest there was an informal financial arrangement, a loan of sorts intended to help them secure their footing, perhaps even aiding in the down payment of that sprawling Montecito estate or covering the astronomical costs of their private security detail before the Netflix millions actually hit their bank accounts. It was, by all accounts, a gentleman's agreement, born of Perry's genuine sympathy for their plight. However, sympathy has a shelf life, and it seems the expiry date has passed. A source close to the situation indicates that Perry has effectively issued a final notice. The word circulating among the Hollywood power brokers is that the couple has not only failed to repay this significant sum, but has also become increasingly difficult to reach. There are murmurs of ghosting, that peculiar modern phenomenon where one simply ceases to communicate, which is a bold strategy when you are ghosting a man worth $1 billion who knows all your secrets. The narrative has shifted dramatically. Perry, once their most vocal defender, has reportedly backed away entirely. The silence from his camp is deafening. He is no longer the benevolent uncle. He is a creditor who has realized that his investment is toxic. This is a disaster for Harry and Meghan. Losing Spotify was a business failure. Losing Tyler Perry is a social death knell. He was their bridge to Oprah, to the Clooneys, to the very establishment they sought to join. If the rumor of this $14 million debt is true, it suggests that their lifestyle has been funded not by their own earnings, but by the generosity of friends who are now closing their checkbooks. It paints a picture of a couple living on a credit that has finally run out. They are burning bridges with the very people who built the raft that kept them afloat. And if they thought they could turn back to the family they spent 4 years attacking for a financial lifeline, they have received a response that is colder than a Balmoral winter. This brings us to the second, and perhaps more humiliating, chapter of this week's revelations. Amidst reports of this cash crunch, with the Spotify deal dead and the Netflix contract hanging by a thread, Harry reportedly reached out to the one person he has hurt the most, his brother, Prince William. Now, one has to marvel at the sheer audacity of it. After Spare, after the interviews, after the documentaries, a source close to palace circles claims that Harry made an approach to the Duchy of Cornwall. The figures being bandied about are eye-watering, ranging from a $36 million loan to a staggering $100 million bailout. The logic presumably was that the duchy which funds the heir's public and private life has surplus cash, and that William, as a brother, would not see Harry go under. The response, I am told, was swift, brutal, and final. Prince William reportedly rejected the request out of hand, but it is the phrasing of the rejection that is most telling. A well-placed insider suggests that the Prince of Wales made it abundantly clear that the Duchy of Cornwall is not a family slush fund. This is a devastating categorization. It strips away the emotional manipulation Harry often relies on and reduces the request to what it is, a bad business proposition. William views the duchy as a sacred trust, an ancient estate meant to support the monarchy and the heir's official duties, not to plug the holes in a leaky California lifestyle. The rejection is being framed by commentators not just as a no, but as a financial severing. For years, there was a lingering belief, perhaps even in Harry's own mind, that if things got truly desperate, the Bank of Pa or the brotherly bond would save them. That delusion has been shattered. The king is reportedly following his eldest son's lead on this. The message from London is crystal clear. You chose to leave, you chose to be independent, and independent is what you shall be. Think about the position this puts them in. They are squeezed from both sides. In America, their godfather is demanding repayment of a fortune. In Britain, the royal vault is locked tight. They are standing on a financial cliff edge, staring down into the abyss of their own overheads. The security costs alone are estimated at $3 million a year. The mortgage is another burden. The taxes, the staff, the travel, it all adds up to a burn rate that requires a superstar income they simply do not have. This refusal from William also signals a shift in the power dynamic. It is no longer about reconciliation or apologies. It is about quarantine. The royal family has effectively placed the Sussex operation in financial quarantine to ensure that their toxicity does not infect the institution's accounts. William is looking at the long game. He knows that bailing Harry out now would only enable further attacks in the future. By cutting off the money, he is forcing them to face the consequences of their actions without a safety net. It is a ruthless move, but a necessary one, and it leaves Harry and Meghan in a precarious position. They are house poor in a mansion they cannot afford, surrounded by neighbors who are slowly turning their backs and cut off from the only dynasty that gave them relevance. The panic behind the scenes must be palpable. When you owe $14 million to a friend and your own family won't lend you a dime, you aren't just in debt, you are alone. And being alone in Montecito, with the world watching and the creditors calling, is a very dangerous place to be. But as we will see in the next part of our discussion, the desperation to solve this liquidity crisis has led to some even more bizarre maneuvers regarding their real estate portfolio, a shell game of assets designed to hide the truth from the public eye. Are you ready to see how deep the rabbit hole goes? If the financial walls are closing in, as the silence from Tyler Perry and the closed doors of the Duchy of Cornwall suggest, then the question becomes, where do they turn for liquid cash? When the Bank of Dad is closed and the billionaire friends stop picking up the phone, you have to look at your assets. And this brings us to the most fascinating shell game of all, the mystery of the Montecito mansions. You may have seen the headlines recently, screaming that Harry and Meghan's Montecito estate had finally sold. The internet was awash with reports that a massive property, the very backdrop of their Netflix confessional, had been offloaded for a tidy sum. It fit the narrative perfectly. They were cashing out. But let us be under no illusions. This was a classic case of smoke and mirrors, a sleight of hand designed to confuse the casual observer. The house that sold was not their home. It was the Netflix mansion, a sprawling property nearby used as a glorified stage set for their documentary. Why? Because, according to a source behind closed doors, their actual residence was deemed not grand enough, or perhaps too private for the cameras. The sale of that other house created a convenient smokescreen. It allowed the world to believe that high-end real estate in their zip code is moving fast, that the demand is there. But the reality of their actual situation at the Riven Rock estate is far more precarious. A well-placed source in the California luxury real estate market has whispered that Harry and Meghan have quietly placed their own home on what is known as a pocket listing. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, this is a secretive off-market status. The house isn't on Zillow. There is no for sale sign on the lawn. It is shown only to pre-vetted, ultra-wealthy buyers who sign non-disclosure agreements before they even step past the security gate. Why the secrecy? Why not list it publicly and let the bidding war begin? Because, my friends, there is no bidding war. A public listing that sits for months or years without a buyer is a mark of death in that tax bracket. It signals that the property is overpriced, or worse, that it has bad energy. And let's be honest, that house has seen nothing but turmoil since they moved in. By using a pocket listing, they can test the waters without the humiliation of a public price chop. It is a desperate attempt to secure a quick exit while maintaining the illusion of control. They need to liquidate, and they need to do it now. The mortgage on that place is reportedly $9.5 million. The taxes, the gardening, the pool maintenance, the staffing, it is a beast that eats money every single day. And if they are indeed trying to sell it quietly, it confirms what many analysts have suspected. They are house poor. They are living in a museum they cannot afford to heat. And if the real estate situation is a headache, the state of their business ventures is a migraine. We must talk about American Riviera Orchard. Do you remember the fanfare? The soft focus videos, the calligraphy, the promise of a lifestyle empire that would rival Martha Stewart? It was meant to be the golden goose. We were promised jams, jellies, home goods, a curated existence available for purchase. And yet, months later, what do we have? Silence. A source within the industry claims that the brand has hit a logistical wall. There are reports, and these are truly damaging if true, of unsold inventory issues. We are hearing whispers of products sitting in storage lockers, of trademark disputes, and of a CEO search that has turned into a revolving door. One insider described the venture as all icing, no cake. The initial buzz has evaporated, leaving behind a stark reality. You cannot pay a $14 million mortgage with jars of strawberry jam sent to 50 of your closest influencers, half of whom didn't even post about it. This leads us to the terrifying concept known in financial circles as the cliff. Every analyst looking at the Sussex ledger sees the same thing. Their overheads are fixed and astronomical. Between the mortgage and the security detail, which as we know they are obsessed with and must fund themselves, they are looking at a burn rate of perhaps $12 to $15 million a year just to stand still. Against this, what is the income? The Spotify deal is dead and buried, labeled a grift by one of its own executives. The Netflix contract is entering its final stages, and with the writers' and actors' strikes having delayed production, the payout pipeline is drying up. The memoir money has been spent. The speaking fees are dwindling because, frankly, they have nothing new to say. They are facing a liquidity crisis of epic proportions. And this is where the inventory rumor becomes so potent. If Meghan's business is indeed stalling, if the products are gathering dust in a warehouse somewhere in Los Angeles instead of flying off the shelves, it represents sunk costs they cannot recover. It is money they spent to launch a brand that has failed to launch. King Charles, in his wisdom, is reportedly aware of this. A well-meaning staff member suggests that the monarch has, through intermediaries, advised his son to downsize. It is sensible advice. Sell the monster mansion, move to something manageable, cut the security costs by living somewhere that doesn't require a private army. But to do so would be an admission of defeat. It would be an admission that the billion-dollar brand was a fantasy. So they cling on. They play the shell game. They let rumors of the Netflix house sale confuse the narrative. They hide their own home on a pocket listing, hoping a Russian oligarch or a tech billionaire will bail them out before the bank does. They pretend the lifestyle brand is just gestating rather than failing. But you cannot hide from the math forever. And as the financial pressure mounts, it is inevitably taking a toll on the domestic front. When the money runs out, the walls start to close in, and the house, huge as it is, starts to feel very, very small. This brings us to the rumors of separate wings and a marriage that is increasingly lived in two different time zones under one roof. In our final segment, we will walk through the halls of that Montecito estate to see how a couple can live together, yet remain worlds apart. We have followed the money, or rather the lack of it, and we have exposed the shell game played with their assets. But financial strain does not exist in a vacuum. It seeps into the walls of a home, it chills the air between a couple, and eventually it dictates the geography of a marriage. And this brings us to the most intimate and perhaps the most melancholy aspect of the Sussex saga, the architecture of their estrangement. When you purchase a 19,000 square foot estate, a property with 9 bedrooms, 16 bathrooms, a library, a gym, a sauna, a game room, and a tea house, you're not buying a family home. You're buying a hotel. You're buying a facility designed for separation. And according to voices from within the Montecito enclave, that is precisely how the property is being utilized. For months, there has been a persistent murmur about the separate wings narrative. It is a tale as old as aristocracy itself, the Duke in the West Wing, the Duchess in the East. But in Montecito, the geography is slightly different. A source close to the household suggests that the main house has become Meghan's domain, her office, her command center for the American Riviera orchard launch, the place where the Zoom calls happen and the strategies are drafted. It is a hive of frantic, often fruitless activity. Harry, conversely, is increasingly found elsewhere on the grounds. The estate boasts a substantial guest house, a fully equipped, standalone residence that has reportedly become his sanctuary. Insiders have dubbed it the man cave, though that term feels too trivial for what it represents. It is a retreat, a place where the prince can escape the relentless branding exercises of the main house. It is where he allegedly spends his evenings, playing video games, making calls to old friends in London who still pick up, and perhaps wondering how he ended up in a gilded cage so far from home. This architectural setup is convenient. It allows them to live together for the cameras, the united front, the hand-holding walks to the car, while living entirely separate lives in practice. When he travels solo to Japan, to Singapore, or to the UK for his court cases, the dynamic at home does not shift dramatically because he is already, in a sense, living apart. The separate wings are not just physical, they are emotional. They are living in a vast, echoing space where they can go days without truly intersecting, drifting past each other like ghosts in a hallway. And if the walls of Montecito are closing in, the horizon is looking increasingly gray. This brings us to the final and most ironic twist in the tale, the Cotswolds conspiracy. You may have caught the news that Ellen DeGeneres, their neighbor, their confidant, the woman who gave them a platform when Oprah's glow began to fade, has purchased a property in the Cotswolds. She has effectively fled the toxic atmosphere of the United States for the rolling green hills of the English countryside. Now, why does this matter? Because where the queen bee goes, the hive follows. A well-placed source suggests that Harry and Meghan are watching this move with intense interest. There are whispers, quiet, tentative inquiries about properties in that very same region. The Cotswolds. The irony is suffocating, is it not? The couple who fled the racist, stifling United Kingdom to find freedom in America are now reportedly considering a retreat to the very heart of the British establishment's playground. But understand the nuance here. This is not a return to Frogmore Cottage. That door is bolted shut. This is not a return to royal duties. That ship has sailed. This would be a soft return to a celebrity enclave. The Cotswolds is where the Beckhams live, though that bridge is likely burned too, where Jeremy Clarkson farms, where the Chipping Norton set holds court. It is a bubble of wealth and privacy that sits near the royal family, but is not of it. Critics are already framing this potential move as the ultimate admission of defeat. It would be a reversal of Megxit in all but name. It suggests that the American dream has soured. The Hollywood A-list did not embrace them. They tolerated them, and then they ignored them. The political career did not materialize. The billion-dollar brand is stuck in a warehouse. America, with its relentless focus on the bottom line, has asked, "What do you actually do?" And having no answer, they are looking back across the Atlantic. Imagine the scene. Harry and Meghan settling into a farmhouse in Oxfordshire, trying to reintegrate into a society they spent 4 years trashing on global television. It is a desperate strategy. It smacks of a couple who have run out of road. They are looking for a safe harbor, because the waters in California have become too choppy. If they do sell the Montecito estate, perhaps via that pocket listing we discussed, and move to the UK, it will be spun as a lifestyle choice, a desire for their children to know their heritage. But we will know the truth. We will know it is because the overheads in California were eating them alive, and because you cannot be a Hollywood power couple if Hollywood doesn't want you. So where does this leave us? We have a $14 million debt hanging over their heads like a sword of Damocles. We have a rejection from the future king that has cut off their financial supply line. We have a business that is failing to launch, a house that is too big for their marriage, and a potential retreat to the country they claim to hate. It is a tragedy of their own making. They wanted to be global disruptors, but they have ended up as cautionary tales. The House of Sussex was built on sand, on grievances, on secrets, and on the generosity of others. And now, the tide is coming in. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. The situation is fluid, and the desperation is palpable. I will be keeping a very close watch on the land registry in the Cotswolds and the bankruptcy courts in California. Until next time, keep your eyes open and don't believe the gloss. The truth is always in the cracks.